Hello, everybody. My name is Jay Huffman, and I'm the founding pastor here at Men Up Ministries in Austin, Texas. And you know what? All over the world, we're so grateful that you're here. And hey, we're grateful that you're here.
We added another seat.
I got my good buddy Eric Heyman with me, and man, we've been friends for years. And I've asked him he's been co-writing this concept of legacy with me, and we can't wait to co-teach it together.
Yeah, as Jay said, so we're really great friends. One of the founding OG members of Man Up back in the old days, the first kind of series. And I get to serve as the chair of the board. And so this is a very near and dear kind of experience to me to kind of work on these lessons. And besides doing that with Jay, I'm also a husband. I got a father of 4 kids. They're not really kids anymore, I guess. They're pretty much adults at this point. And I also get to serve as the CEO of a local company here in town called Austin Asset.
Okay, so we've been talking about the concept of legacy for 3, 4, 5 years. We've taught lessons on it together, but this is our first full featured series. We just wanted to take all that we've been learning about this concept of legacy and put it into a 6-week journey. And we want to invite you in. We have a different experience. I've been a full-time pastor my whole life, and he's been full-time in business. But yeah, we both have a heart for ministry. And so I think together we're going to bring like this concept for our families, for our ministries, for our companies. It's an all-in approach to legacy. And I'm just glad you're here. We can't wait to dive in.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So this idea of legacy is really born out of almost trying to help ourselves understand how it's different than the way we believe it to be. So this idea of legacy is often something thought about as we leave it behind. And one of the main concepts that we want to get in front of everyone is this idea of legacy is really something that you leave, that you share along the way, that you leave it along the way. Like as you're going through life, this idea of it isn't something that you leave behind. It's something that you're giving away along the way. So you'll see that across a lot of the messages, a lot of the content that you'll see is this idea of it's in the things that we're doing in the present day. And so there's this definition that Jay and I have worked on for years that talks about what is legacy. And legacy is really this idea of sharing what you know, love, and value with the people around you so that they can do it without you. And so that's really a big part of what we're going to be unpacking today is this concept of what are the things that you know and love and value, and who are the people around you that you can share that with. So at some point, they're going to be doing it without you.
Listen, that's the crazy part. That one day, everything that you lead, every ministry, company, team, everything that you has your fingerprints on it as the leader, everything you lead and everyone you love will have to do it without you. They're going to have to go on without you. And legacy is your opportunity and my opportunity to prepare them for that day that they'll do it without you. So that's where we're going.
And I think to that point, Jay, the truth is that we all want to leave a legacy. Like there's this big word of legacy, right? There's this far away place that says at some point I'm leaving a legacy. And really this series is meant to bring it into a practical place of what's the application on a day-to-day basis? What does it look like to do this through the everyday parts of your life and everyday schedules that you live? And because the people around you may need to know these things, but also there's things that you have access to that you need to be, that we can be sharing with them along the way. And so it's really this idea of the people and the things that matter most to us. How do we share those with an open-handed posture to those that are around us that could benefit from it?
Okay, so that's kind of where we're going.
Setup,
There's our setup. And I want to start with an opening story. You know, I love a good story, which you'll see a lot of them in this series. So I was 19 years old. And I got asked to preach in big church for the first time.
Oh boy,
big church.
Big church.
Okay.
So this is not over in the portable.
No,
this is in the
it's
big.
not. I'd already done the youth ministry and the kids ministry. No, this was big church, adults. Now I didn't get the Sunday morning slot. I got the Sunday night slot.
Okay.
Where not as many people would come back, so my dad felt it was a little comfortable to
low risk
to give me the pulpit for the night.
Okay.
It was also during the middle of the summer when attendance is usually lower. But I was home from college for the summer. He says, Jay, will you preach on this Sunday night? Man, I was ready to go. I prepped my notes and I wrote notes. You know what I do. And I stood in that pulpit that Sunday night and I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I was so confident until I'm there in front of the congregation and I thought, I'm not my dad.
Yeah.
In fact, the irony was I was teaching about Joshua replacing Moses.
Oh.
And I remember the main point in the book of Joshua was early on, Joshua just feeling this overwhelming sense of, but I'm not Moses.
Mhm.
I
How am I
didn't,
gonna fill those shoes?
I
Yeah.
can't fill those shoes. I've been the second chair. I've been the helper. I've been the intern. And here I am leading God's people. And I remember that night thinking, yeah, but I'm not my dad. I don't know what I'm doing. But somehow, man, God worked through me, so much so that I preached for an hour and 10 minutes. So
Okay.
it's
Well,
legit.
all
Like
right. This comes naturally.
this long-winded stuff,
comes naturally. It started that way.
these 37-minute videos, you ain't seen nothing. You've seen Jay Huffman preach for an hour and
Just
10
getting
minutes.
warmed up. That's right.
But I realized when I shut my Bible and I went to sit down that while I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, I actually had been watching my dad my whole life. And he had been teaching me along the way
Mhm.
how to do what he did. Now, here's the irony. This just happened today. My son's 28 and he works at a church in town, and he doesn't normally preach. He works out in the mission field in the city of Austin. And he called me this morning and he said, Pops, they've asked me to preach in big church. And I mean, this is a big church too. They're on TV and everything. He goes, Pops, they've asked me to preach in big church. And I'm thinking, oh my. He goes, and I'm on the way to Pastor Dave's office right now for him to look over my sermon. And I was just so overwhelmed with this principle of, I said over the phone, I said, buddy, you got this.
Mhm.
You've been prepping for this your whole life. You've watched me do it thousands of times.
Mhm.
I'm praying for you, but you can do this. That, my friends, is kind of the quintessential
Yeah.
legacy story.
It really is. And, to that point, along the way, you're sharing what it looks like to do that so that when he gets that call, it's not a surprise to him. Certainly there's probably some anxiety, a little bit of nervousness that shows up in that, and a little bit of, oh my gosh, what did I just get myself into?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's seen you share what it's like to lead and pastor and teach and influence people along the way. So that's a big part of this definition. Is this idea that legacy is sharing what you know, love, and value, as I mentioned earlier. And so this idea of knowing, loving, and valuing and sharing that with others, the people around you, right? So who are the people that are in your sphere of influence? Like whether it's in your work environment, your home environment, your family environment, so that they can do it without you. And that's the real central theme of this series, is this idea of how do we get to a point where we understand that legacy is sharing what we know, love, and value with the people around you so that they can do it without you.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anybody in Scripture that does it any better than David.
Right.
I mean, David left, if you know King Solomon and the wisdom, I attribute a lot of that, yes, to the Lord and for the prayer that he prayed for wisdom, but I also attribute a lot of that to his dad. I
Absolutely.
mean, honestly, if you look at Psalms and then you see the fruit of that in Proverbs.
In Proverbs, yeah.
So in Psalm chapter 78, this has been a theme verse for me as a student pastor for 20 years in my history. Psalm 78, verse 4, it says, we will not hide these truths from our children. All right, if you're not an active listener, I want you to become one. So get those green
Get
pens
the pen out.
and,
Get the pen
and
out.
circle, we will not hide the truths from our children. We will tell the next generation. See, this is the intentional part of legacy. They made up his mind that I am going to do this. We will tell the next generation about the glorious deeds of the Lord. We're going to talk about his power. We're going to talk about his mighty wonders. All right, green pens, verse 6. So he's like, this is why I'm doing this, so that the next generation will know God's power, so the next generation will know God's wonders and know God's deeds. Even, look at this, even the children that aren't even born yet, and then they in turn will teach their children. Y'all, that's multiple generational legacy found in this one scripture, and he says it again in verse 7, so that each generation would set its hope anew on God, and they wouldn't forget about God's glorious miracles, and so they would obey his commands. My friends, if you don't get anything I'm inviting you again to, there's a reason that legacy matters. Well, I say this, we're one generation away from things utterly falling apart in our generational line.
Yeah.
And the reason that we pass this on is so that the next generation will know and that they will also follow the Lord's commands. Now, let's look at our definition again. It's sharing what you know, love, and value with the people around you so they can do it without you. I think there's 4 parts to that that help us unpack that definition. Number 1, who are the people around you? Who are the people around you? At home, At work, at play, at school, at church? Who are the people around you? Listen, so often we think of legacy as just a family thing.
Right.
But as a pastor, I think about everybody that's around me for this particular season of ministry is in the wake of my legacy.
Yeah, the restaurant you go to on a regular basis.
The
store you go to, the grocery store you go to on a regular basis, the checker checks you out because you're there on the same time every day. They work the same shift. Like it's the people that you are in proximity with through the days of your week, through the months of your year.
And as a CEO of a company, it's everybody on your team. You got
your
to
employees,
entrust
it's your clients, it's the resources that you utilize, it's the people that you interact with, the people you see at a conference, the people you see on an airplane on your way to that conference.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you may just start making a legacy list of kind of who are the people in your life that are looking up to you and learning from you. Now, here's what we want to do with the people on our list. We want to do the next three things.
Yeah. So when you think of those people, when you get a glimpse in your mind of who those people are, the idea of sharing what you know. So what you know with them, what is it that you know that they should know? Well, think of your education, your experiences, the lessons you've learned, the kind of the education you have, the things that your life have filled this head of yours, this brain, the knowledge that you have that could be valuable to them. The second thing is this idea of what do you love? Well, think of the love. What do you love that they should love or they should care about? It's what matters to you. Think of your heart, right? So this is the part of you that has to do with like, what is it that you care about so much that you can't not care about it? It's the idea, the missional things that drive the purpose for what you do when you wake up in the morning. It's the vision you have for this world or for your community or for your family in this example. And the last one is this idea of what is it that you have that you can share with them, when you think of that, what's in your hands, right? So you think of your hands and you go, well, what is it that's in my hands? Well, a lot of people think of that as resources for sure. Like, what is it that the tangible things that you have access to that could help other people, but it's also the relationships. When I think of what is that you have, well, a handshake. I've got a relationship with someone, and how can I share that with someone else that could be beneficial to them? It could be a resource, a mentor, an advisor, a counselor, a therapist, a pastor, where that's something that you have that's relational, that you can share it with the people that are behind you, that are around you.
You're actually experiencing that right now because multiples of your kids are graduating from college,
right? Being
young adults, getting into the workforce. And you're not just doling them out a big fat allowance. No. While they would love for that,
sure.
I imagine.
Right, that's right.
You're telling them what you know, you're giving them wisdom, you're introducing them to the right people.
Yes.
These are all part of what it means to build and to leave a legacy along the way.
Yeah.
Now, here's maybe the most important thing of today's talk. You'll never leave a godly legacy accidentally. It will only happen, watch this, it'll only happen intentionally. We're going to talk about this later. You are leaving a legacy, whether you want to or not, but you won't you'll never look up and go, oh my gosh, I left this amazing legacy.
It just happened.
I never even thought about it. I just did whatever I wanted to do, and it was that's such a godly family. No, by default, we're going to all run things into the ditch.
Yes.
A godly legacy will never happen accidentally. It will only happen intentionally. And I even want to drill down on that. I contend that it happens one word at a time. One action at a time. One reaction at a time. Like how you react to what they just did, to what they just said. You're building a legacy based on not just your actions, but your reactions. Ultimately, it kind of all boils down into this idea of one choice at a time. The legacy that you're leaving is definitely just a summary of the choices that you're making. So that's kind of what we want to talk about for the next few minutes. It's 5 choices to leaving a godly legacy. Like, these are the bullet points of, man, I want to do that. If I'm going to leave a godly legacy, I need to do these 5 things. And we got a scripture and a main point under each one.
Yeah, and I think just to the finer point of that, connecting back to kind of earlier introduction to this, is that the one word, the one action, the one reaction, the one choice, they're the culmination of all these things that are happening throughout the day. So this is where that legacy concept is. You're giving it away along the way, right? It's happening throughout the day. All these everyday choices, all these everyday decisions you make, all these actions and reactions and words you choose. It's just part of the way we live our lives. It's not an orchestrated event that's got an agenda and it's got a timestamp and it's got, I would do it this by this point. It's just the things that we're doing naturally, the interactions we have in the grocery store, the interaction we have with our kids and our wives and families and coworkers. And so this idea of the 5 choices, to your point, so think of it as you've 5 choices to leaving this godly legacy. And the first one is this idea of legacy is choosing to give when you would just really rather take. And everything about it. And everything about it is the natural posture that I'm in on an everyday basis. The idea of, golly, do I give some more?
Yeah,
I just want to take.
I think especially at home.
Absolutely.
Especially at the end of a long day and you've been giving and giving and giving. And that's the moment that you have the opportunity to keep giving.
That's right.
I've got a long drive home, and I often think, Lord, help me be ready to be available for Rebecca, to be available when my kids were home, to be available for the kids, that I won't have spent everything today and have nothing left to give.
Yeah. So this idea of legacy is choosing to give when you want to take. And so Mark tells us about that in terms of Jesus saying, so in the spirit of Jay, like this is not my opinion about, this is not Jay's opinion about, this is Jesus's perspective on this. So for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. So this idea of if Jesus's posture was to serve, and if he left one of the most amazing legacies there is, how is it that we can fight the temptation to take when a posture of giving would be beneficial? And so my parents were incredible models for this. They started church when I was really young, when I was in preschool, and we moved to Round Rock, a city outside of Austin, to start this church. We met in a preschool for a while, and we finally raised the funds to buy a piece of property. And so we bought this piece of property as a church. And because it was a small church and everyone was all hands on deck, so to speak, many hands make light work, right? So we were all involved in the work,
or
right?
a few committed families do all the work.
That's right, right. But all the families were involved, right? So on a Saturday morning, we were at the property mowing the property, which is what you did back then. You didn't have lawn service. The church, you signed up and had a rotation to come mow the property. So we're up there mowing the property, and the foundation of the church had just been built. And I'm going around cleaning up the property, clean up like a 5-gallon bucket worth of trash, right? So just cigarette butts and junk that was around the property. And I find a $10 bill.
Nice.
And I'm like, I'm probably 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can go to Walmart and buy a lot of Hot Wheels with $10.
They were only $1 a piece.
And I could get an ice cream cone. I mean, this was life-changing money as a 7-year-old. It really was. But I had seen my parents serve the church. I'd been in business meetings where they're passing around the bills to pay the salary and electric bill and the water bill. And I'd seen what it looked like for my parents to sacrifice and give to this missional thing that they had that they wanted to do. And when I found that $10, I go to my parents and I was like, so here's the $10. I found it on the church property while we were mowing the grass and cleaning up the property. Do you think the church could use it? And so like, well, let's go. So they got a hold of the pastor or whatever, maybe in the next couple of days, said, well, we're putting an order in for some chairs. And so that $10 would pay for half a chair if you want to.
Which half did you buy, the left or the right?
I think I bought the bottom.
Oh, the bottom. The
part you sat on?
The important part.
I wanted to invest in the part that
was stable.
But in that moment, like I reconciled through my parents' behavior this idea of, do I give this or do I take it and buy some Hot Wheels and have some fun and ice cream and things like that? And I think that's what legacy was about. It was all of their small little decisions of serving this church meant so that when I received the money, while I thought about it for a moment, it was pretty clear that $10 was found on the property. It should remain on the property. And I actually was very happy to know that it bought half a chair, right?
Yeah. And more than likely, that was kind of a watershed moment for you.
Absolutely. To this day, it's still one of the first moments where I feel like I gave, where I decided to give something instead of keeping it for myself.
Okay, so that's choice number 1, is choosing to give when you'd rather take. Okay, number 2, legacy is choosing to do what's right instead of what's easy. Oh, gosh.
Boy.
I'm serious, y'all. Every man under the sound of my voice you can think of a time where you knew the right thing to do, and you knew there was a much easier route.
Oh, for sure.
And nobody even expected you to do the right thing.
No, the exit was a lot closer.
The door was wide open and propped open. And you knew that you could not take the easy route out. You had to do the right thing. I think about in my family legacy, I think about something that happened when I was 8 years old. My dad was pastoring a church in Albany, Georgia. In fact, I just got off the phone with him a few minutes ago. He says, Jay, I'm down here in Albany, visiting some old friends from the church, and I'm preaching this Sunday at their church. And I love that he's still there. And at this particular juncture, it was a Sunday night. Everything good
Sunday
happens on
night.
Sunday night.
That's right.
It's all
That's
going
right.
down.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that one of the deacons walked up to the platform and called an emergency business meeting.
That's not good.
It's never good. And they said they had a quorum of votes, and they wanted to vote my dad out of the church that he started. I was 8 years old, and I remember the moment that happened, my mom turned around, and she turned to Miss Mallory that we were sitting next to, and she says, Miss Mallory, you need to take the kids. Yeah. And little did we know that it was to be a watershed moment in my dad's life, but also in us three boys. And we went away to Miss Mallory's house and later found out what was going on behind the scenes. We had our first black man that wanted to join an all-white church in South Georgia. And my dad said, absolutely. And they wanted to vote him out over it. And he says, we have two options. Either that man's going to join our church or you're going to kick me out as the pastor. Yeah. And he stood his ground. And almost half the church walked out. I remember thinking Dad could have done the easy thing.
Yeah.
He could have just said, it's just one person. It's just one decision. It won't really matter. But it did matter.
Yeah. It wouldn't disrupt his life. People stay the same, like stays pretty normal. Yeah.
And I just think about this concept of going, you know what, when it would be much easier just to take the easy route, I'm going to do what's right. When I think about the scriptures, I think about Joseph. Joseph in Genesis chapter 29, verses 6 said, Joseph was very handsome, like Eric. Whoa. He was very well built, like me, and he was young, like neither of us. Joseph was handsome and well built and young. Watch this. And Potiphar's wife began to look at him lustfully. Potiphar was like lead in charge, man. He had major mega power. If you don't know the story of Joseph, he was a servant. He was God's anointed and God's chosen, but in this part of his story, he was a servant. Yeah. Nobody cared about his life. And here's this rich, wealthy woman with all kinds of power saying, come sleep with me. And she demanded, she kept coming after him. She grabbed him by the cloak and said, come on, sleep with me. And Joseph tore himself away and he left his cloak in her hand and he ran away from the house. He tore himself away and ran away. Things got worse for him.
Mm-hmm, they did.
Not better.
No.
But the only reason we even know the story of Joseph was because he did what was right instead of what was easy. And that's choice number 2 that you'll have to make to leave a godly legacy.
Yeah. So as we move to number 3, so this idea of legacy again. So it's a big part of legacy is this idea of you might be at the tip of the spear, right? Your dad was the tip of the spear. He was in charge of this church, but he had a group of people that
I think he was feeling the tip of the spear.
He was feeling the spear. Yeah, absolutely he was.
Exactly.
But this idea of legacy often boils down to this idea of you're in a leadership posture, a leadership position, right? And so this third point is around legacy is choosing to lead when you want to follow. Like this idea of, it would have been much easier for your dad to say, you know what, I'll just follow the majority of the voice in this room and whatever you want, I'll go along with. But he didn't. And so this idea for me, this idea of choosing to lead when you want to follow, when I first met Jay back in late 2013, and then we launched our very first regular Man Up group in early 2014, was the first series we ever produced, and we taught, and I was there, and I remember going through that series, and I was in a point in my career where I'd worked with the founder of our company for quite a while, for 17 years, and we had been building out a transition plan for him to basically retire and exit the business. And we were towards the tail end of that. And in that series, there was this concept of owning owning your decisions, right? And when I thought about that for me in terms of legacy is choosing to lead when you'd rather follow, it was way more comfortable for me to be the second chair. Yeah. I mean, I had a founder of a business. He was very outspoken.
And you were only 39 years old, too. So you were a young man.
I was a really young guy. And this idea.
Especially for that industry.
That's right. And so to step out and think that it was time for the founder to completely exit the firm and for me to basically be in charge now in the first chair, I really didn't want to do it. It was way more comfortable to have him be around. I could play second chair If he did things that were wrong, I had kind of an excuse that I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. And so it was a real clear point in time where the call on my life, if I was going to be leaving a legacy, it was just time for me to lead. The time for me to sit in the second chair, so to speak, was over. And many of you might find yourself in a position where maybe in your life at home, you've been in the second chair. In your life at work, you've been in the second chair. In relationships with friends, you've been in the second chair, watching things and being part of things that you've just been going along with. And it may be time for you to lead a conversation. So after one of the lessons, I got the office. I set an appointment with the founder and had him come in my office, which used to be his old office, which was awkward in its own way. And we had the conversation about it was just time. And that it was just time for me to lead because there were things that I had on my heart to do. And I knew that there were things that he would be released from that would also be beneficial to him. And so this idea of leading and not following can be just as beneficial for the audience as it is for you.
It's a win-win.
It is.
Both of you.
Because oftentimes I think what I would say to that is that oftentimes they're waiting for you to lead. They're just waiting for you to step up and say it's time. And I think that's what I've discovered. It relates to this legacy point, is this idea of when we get into the story about Joshua, right? So Joshua said to the people of Israel, fear the Lord and serve him wholeheartedly. So when I was in this position, I'm trying to honor this founder. I'm trying to be a good second chair person. But as we go into this passage, but if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. And for me, it was time for me to choose someone else to serve, which was to serve the mission and vision that I had for the business. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So when you think of that, that's usually a family thing. But when I thought of it through the lens of a business owner was, if the business wasn't serving the things that I thought were beneficial to the business,
what you knew, loved,
which I knew, loved, and valued, right? So these things that I knew, loved, and valued, then I was dishonoring it as much as I was just playing it safe. And so this idea that you may be called as you begin to leave your legacy in your choices and your words and your actions, that it could be the first call to lead and to not follow.
Yeah. Okay, so number 4 might be the hardest of these 5.
Oh, yeah.
Its legacy is choosing to stay when you want to quit.
You're just done.
You just are done. You're done with the marriage. You're done with that ministry that you thought God called you to. You're done with the company. You're done serving. You're done with that friendship. You're just done. You want to quit and check out. I have a lot of conversations with men, and often they want to quit long before they're actually done.
Agreed.
They've not done all that they could. They've not leaned in every way. They've not asked for help in the way that they could. And they just want to check out a little too early. And I know all too well what that feels like. I've been there too. So for me, I've done a lifetime of ministry full-time. Ministry's always been hard. I've done it for 33 years now. There's never really been a season of the time where I thought, wow, this is really easy. It always has its challenges.
I've sat close to Jay for nearly 12 years through this, and there really is never a season where it's like, wow, there's no problem.
Right.
It's like everything's going just rainbows and butterflies.
Sometimes when things are going really well, there's an opportunity problem. Like,
That's
how
right.
are we going to...
Are we engaging with people enough?
How are we going to match that opportunity? And that becomes a problem. But I remember graduating from college. I graduated from college at 20 years old. And nobody wanted to hire a 20-year-old youth pastor.
No.
Especially as good looking as I
You
was.
should be in the group
then.
still. You
That's
should
right.
still be in the youth group.
I was like 2 years older than the kids in the group.
You're still part of the youth group. Are you here for the group?
So we decided that I'd come home and I'd do an internship at my dad's church. And Rebecca and I were going to get married the next summer. So it was perfect. I would intern for 6 months. We'd get married, and then then I'd be an
amazing
official
you're an adult. Yeah, you're married.
I'd be 21 and married.
Married cards that qualify.
Yeah, and I remember coordinating this internship with the church deacons, and they agreed to pay me $300 a week for that internship. And 1 week before I was to start that internship, for some reason, they decided that the internship wasn't worth $300 a week. It was worth $100 a week.
It's a little different.
Now, that's a little different.
Yeah.
That's a lot different. I was trying to, buy a house and get ready for a marriage and a wedding. And I remember thinking then at 21 years old, this is my moment to quit if I'm ever going to. I've got a legitimate
Right.
reason. It
They
would be
changed. They moved the cheese on me.
it'd be
It's
easier
totally
just
different.
to exit. And I remember thinking, this is the moment where I'm either in or I'm out. I'm so glad at 53, all these years later, that while it hasn't always been easy, I'm glad that I didn't throw in the towel.
Yeah, the trajectory of your ministry was determined at that point.
Yeah. On a side
Directionally.
yeah. note, my dad stepped up and said, I'm going to fund the additional $200 out of my pocket for 6 months so you don't have to feel the impact. So it was a double legacy. I was learning the legacy of generosity.
Mhm, for
And
sure.
I've done things like that for my kids. Why? Because it was done for me. This is the posture of legacy, is choosing to stay when you want to quit. As Eric mentioned already, the first series we ever did,
Yep.
and Man Up, was on Nehemiah.
The
And
legend. The legend.
The legend Nehemiah. I love the story.
OG character. You know.
Nehemiah was rebuilding a wall, and there's a whole story behind that. But he got to the point where it wasn't going so well, and he had some resistance. People were literally trying to kill them.
Yeah, that's a little bit.
A little bit of resistance. And he turned to all the people that were rebuilding the wall of the city, and he says this. He says, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord. Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord. He is great. He is glorious. And fight for your brothers. Fight for your sons. Fight for your daughters. Fight for your wives. And fight for your homes. This is the original Braveheart right here.
It is. It is.
He's literally
We should yes.
He's telling them, don't forget what you're fighting for. And somebody right now, I'm just looking at you right now, don't forget the marriage that you're fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that son that you're fighting for, or the daughter that you're fighting for, or the ministry that you're fighting for, or that relationship with your dad, your mom that you're fighting for. Don't throw in the towel. Fight for it. It's worth it, because that's what legacy does. It stays when it would rather quit.
Yeah. It's interesting, the idea that in that posture of staying just a little bit longer, just one more moment, one more day, one more action begins to build that muscle to keep doing that the next time.
Yeah.
But that moment, if you quit, that muscle grows too, right? That muscle of quitting gets stronger too. So this is very much going back to the choices and the words and the behaviors. It's the staying just a little bit in a situation, even a small situation, builds the muscle for that bigger situation where you really need to stay, right?
Yeah.
So point number 5, so we're kind of landing this plane here. So legacy is choosing to believe in spite of how you feel. And I think the thing that I know, and the thing people have told me about feelings, they lie to me all the time.
Yeah.
The feelings I have today versus tomorrow, there's a reason why.
Hey, you mean versus this afternoon? Versus 3 minutes
That's right.
ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
The idea of sleeping on it and not seeing the email is valuable, because the feelings will probably change by the morning, right? So I think we logically get that. But when it comes to this idea of legacy, choosing to believe in spite of how you feel, believing that you can leave a legacy, believing that you will leave a legacy that will matter to you and what matters to those around you.
Believing that it's still possible.
That it's still possible.
On the other side of what you've
Whatever
already
it
done.
is. That's
In
right.
fact, that's our final
That's
lesson
right.
of the series.
That's right.
Literally just taking God at his word, that if you do what you can, that he'll match and do what you can.
That's right. And what better person than Abraham, right? So Romans 4:3. So Abraham believed God. Abraham believed God.
Yeah.
There was a lot to that.
Yeah.
There was a lot in that statement.
There was decades of no activity
That's
by
right.
God. Nothing was
that was not a casual statement.
Yeah.
That was decades of life not looking like it, but Abraham believed God.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's the promised son?
That's right.
Where's the son that you promised?
That's right. It's not going to happen. I'm getting old. It's just not. It's not part of my story. And it was accounted to him for righteousness. So, I mentioned earlier I'm a father of 4. They're mostly adults at this point. We have one left at home. She's 17, and it's weird to say this out loud, but as a non-father in my 20s, I was actually a very reluctant dad. Like the idea of becoming a dad, like this idea of believing that I could be a good dad, was something I fought, because the feelings I had were, Eric, you're not a fun-loving guy. You're not like the life of the party. You're not going to roll around the floor with them. What do you have to offer them? You really would prefer to just do work really well. And so I was very much a reluctant dad. And what was interesting about that was the belief I had, though, was modeled by my parents, which was, well, like they weren't that way either, but they found a way to be great parents. And maybe I'm a slow learner because it took 4 kids to learn the fact that I actually believed that God would make
And now
me.
you want to roll around on the floor and they're all gone.
That's
So-
right. They're all gone. Maybe I'll get grandkids, right?
Yep.
So this idea of choosing to believe in spite of how you feel, I didn't feel like a natural dad. I didn't feel like someone who was gung-ho about becoming a father. Although I believed that God had that call on my life
Mhm.
because that was part of a story that I was attracted to from the standpoint of it would be a chance to sow seeds into someone and help them develop and become the person that they could become that I would really enjoy doing. And so this idea of reluctance, there can be a lot of things in your life that you're reluctant about, maybe the feelings you have about it. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if I really want to go there. But there are promises in the words of Scripture that talk about what you can believe in. And Abraham was one of the best examples of belief in that. There's a lot of other stories in his life about him and Isaac and like just believing that God would provide. And for me, as a reluctant father who now has 4 children, I can't imagine not having the 4 kids and the life I get to live with them. But if I had gone with my feelings, it's quite common for me to have accepted the idea that selfishly, or I don't know if I'm up for it, maybe that's not part of my story. And I'm just grateful that the belief I had and who I was being called to be was stronger than my own feelings.
Yeah. So in your small groups today, you're going to get a chance to circle kind of which one of these 5 was most meaningful to you and why. But we're going to land with this. I'm going to give them just kind of back to back as we wrap up. Here's 3 truths about legacy as we close. Number 1, legacy isn't optional; it's inevitable. It's not optional. It's
It's going to happen.
You are either leaving a godly legacy or you're not. You either are leaving a godly legacy or you're not. And then here's the most important truth. The legacy that you're leaving is being formed right now by the choices that you're making. The legacy that you're leaving is being formed by every word, every action, every reaction, and every single choice at a time. We've got a man in our ministry named David who sat in this studio before to film his story, and it's out there on our website. And he says, Jay, I was a high-functioning dad. I was a high-functioning executive. I loved my family well, but I was a drunk. Behind all that, nobody knew the addiction, the level of addiction that was going on. And he sat right where I'm sitting right here in this studio and said these words that I think I'll never forget. He says, I looked up one day to the Lord and said, I don't want my legacy to be, he was a good guy, but he was a drunk. And he goes, and that was the last day that I took a sip of alcohol. It was the day that my life changed when he recognized that the legacy,
he saw it.
It was being formed.
He saw a picture of it, yes.
And he was able to change it in that moment by that one choice of repentance.
Agreed.
And all the choices for the years since that day. So we're praying that for you. We pray that for you right here and right now, and can't wait to see you at the table again next week.